Nitilapavishtam Vishnupad Ashtatarashatashmar Śrīla Bhakti-Vedānta Nārāyaṇa Gosvāmī Mahārāja Śrīla Gurudev Ki Jai. Nitilapavishtam Vishnupad Ashtatarashatashmar Śrīla Bhaktivedānta Vāman Gosvāmī Mahārāja Ki Jai. Nitilapavishtam Vishnupad Ashtatarashatashmar Śrīla Bhaktivedānta Swāmī Mahārāja Śrīla Prabhupāda Ki Jai. Nitilapavishtam Vishnupad Ashtatarashatashmar Śrīla Bhakti Pragyan Keshav Gosvāmī Mahārāja Ki Jai. Nitilapavishtam Vishnupad Ashtatarashatashmar Śrīla Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Gosvāmī Prabhupada Ki Jai. Nitilapavishta Mahabhagavat Śrīla Goksharas Babaji Mahārāja Ki Jai. Nitilapavishta Śrīla Satchidananda Bhakti Vinod Thakur Ki Jai. Nitilapavishta Vaishnav Sarvabhauma Śrīla Jagannath Das Babaji Mahārāja Ki Jai. Śrī Rupanu Gaudiya Guru Varga Ki Jai. Śrī Rupa Sanātana Bhatta Raghunath Śrī Jeev Gopal Bhattadash Raghunath Shrada Gosvāmi Prabhu Ki Jai. Śrī Dāmodara Rai Ramanandari Śrī Gaur Parshad Vrinda Ki Jai. Namachay Śrīla Haridas Thakur Ki Jai. Prem se kaho Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shri Vasari Gaur Bhakta Vrinda Ki Jai. Shri Kshetra Mandala Gaura Mandala Vraja Mandala Mathura Vrindavan Dham Ki Jai. Sarva Abhishta Pradata Giriraj Maharaj Ki Jai. Shri Radha Kunda Shama Kund Ki Jai. Shri Amuna Devi Ganga Devi Ki Jai. Shri Tulsi Maharani Vrinda Devi Ki Jai. Shri Bhakti Devi Ki Jai. Shri Purnamasi Yoga Maya Ki Jai. Shri Gopeshwar Mahadev Ki Jai. Shri Harinam Sankirtan Ki Jai. Ananta Koti Vaishnava Vrinda Ki Jai. Samagata Gaura Bhakta Vrinda Ki Jai. Shri Nitai Gaur Premanande Hari Hari Vo. Shri Kartik Vṛtti Ki Jai. Urja Vṛtti Ki Jai. Urjeshwari Shri Vishabhanu Nandini Shrimati Radha Thakurani Ki Jai. Urja Vṛtt Palan Kari Bhakta Vrindat Ki Jai. Samagata Gaur Bhakta Vrinda Ki Jai. Shri Nitai Gaur Premanande Hari Hari Vo. Vandeham Shri Guru Shri Yuta Parakamalam Shri Guru Vaishnavangsha Shri Rupam Sagrajatam Sahagana Raghunatam Vitangtang Sajivam Sadvaitam Savadhutam Parijana Sahitam Krishna Chaitanya Devam Shri Radha Krishna Padan Sahagana Lalita Shri Vishakam Vitangscha Om Jnanatimirandasya Jnananjana Shalakaya Chakshurun Militam Yena Tasmai Shri Guruve Namaha Nama Om Vishnu Padaya Radhikaya Priyatmane Shri Srimad Bhaktivedānta Nārāyaṇiti Namine Shri Krishna Lila Katane Sudaksham Audarya Madhurya Gunaishcha Yuktam Varam Varenyam Purusham Mahantam Narayanam Tam Shirasa Namami Nama Om Vishnu Padaya Shri Keshava Priyatmane Shri Srimad Bhaktivedānta Vamaniti Namine Nama Om Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prishtaya Bhutale Srimate Bhaktivedānta Swaminiti Namine Namaste Gauravani Shimurtaye Dinatarine Rupanuga Virudapa. Sorry guys. Nama Om Vishnu Padaya. Sorry, I got distracted. Let me start over again. Namaste Gauravani. Namaste Saraswati Deve Gauravani Pracharine Nirvishesha Shunyavadi Paschata Deshatarine Nama Om Vishnu Padaya Acharya Singharupine Shri Srimad Bhakti Pragyana Keshava Iti Namine Atimarta Charitraya Swashritanam Chapalane Jiva dukhe sadartaya Shrinama premadayine. Namo Om Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prishtaya Bhutale Srimate Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Iti Namine Shivarshabhanavi Devi Daitai Kripabdhaye Krishna Sambandhave Jnana Dayane Prabhave Namaha Madhvoyo Jala Premadhya Shirupanuga Bhaktida Shri Gaura Karuna Shakti Vigrahaya Namostute Namaste Gauravani Shri Murtaye Dinatarini Rupanuga Virudapa Siddhanta Dvanta Harine Namo Gaura Kishoraya Shakshad Vairagya Murtaye Vipralambara Sambhode Padam Pujayate Namaha Namo Bhakti Vinodaya Sachirananda Namane Gaura Shakti Sarupaya Rupanugavarayate Gaura Virbhava Bhumestang Nirdeshta Sajjana Priya Vaishnava Sarvabhauma Shri Jaganathayate Namaha Shri Chaitanya Manobhishtam Sthapitam Yena Bhutale Svayam Rupa Kadamahyam Dadati Swapadantikam Vanchakalpatarubhyascha Kripa Sindhubhya Cha Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha Nityananda Namastubhyam Premananda Pradayane Kalo Kalmashanashaya Janava Pataye Namaha Namo Mahavadanyaya Krishna Prema Pradayate Krishnaya Krishna Chaitanya Namne Gauratishe Namaha He Krishna Karuna Sindho Dinabandho Jagatpate Gopesha Gopika Kanta Radha Kanta Namostute Tapta Kanchana Gaurangi Radhe Vrindavaneshwari Vrishabhanu Sute Devi Pranamami Hari Priye Jaitang Suruto Pangor Mama Manda Mater Gati Matsarva Swapadam Bhujo Radha Madana Mohana Devyad Vrindaranya Kalpadrumadha Srimad Ratnagara Singhasanasto Srimad Radha Shila Govinda Devo Preshtalabi Sevamano Smarami Shriman Rasarasa Rambhi Vangsivata Tatastitaha Karshan Venu Swaner Gopir Gopinata Shri Stuna Angashama Lima Chata Bhirabhito Mandi Kritendi Varam Jadyam Jagurarochisham Vidatatam Patambarasya Shriya Vrindaranya Vilasinam Hridilasar Dāmodaraṁ Radhaskanda Niveshito Jalabhujang Dhyayema Dāmodaram Vrindayai Tulusidevai Priyayai Keshavascha Krishna Bhakti Pradadevi Sattvatai Namo Namaha Bhaja Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shivasadi Gaur Bhakta Vrinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Ram Rama Rama Hare Hare. One second, I just want Davanala sama sangsara dahane Dagda jiva kula udhara karane Karuna varidra varida kripa varidani vandi Guna sindhu gurur charana kamala Nritya gita vadya Shri Hari kirtane Rahena magana mahamata mane Romanchakam pashru hoya gora preme Vandishe gurur charana kamala Sadarata jini vigraha sevane Shingaradi ar mandira marjane Karenani yukta anugata jane Vandishe gurur charana kamala Charva chushaleya peyarasamay Prasadana Krishner ati swado hoy Bhaktaya shvadane nija triptaroy Vandishe gurur charana kamala Śrī Dāmodarāṣṭakam nama rupa gune Ananta madhurya lila ashvadane Luta chitta jini ana pratikshane Vandishe guru charana kamala Vraja juva dvanda rati sambardane Yukti kore saki gane vrindavane Ati dakshata he priyatama gane Vandishe gurur charana kamala Sarva shashtre gaye Shri Hari swarupa Bhakta gana bhave she anurupa Kintu jini prabhu priyatama rupa Vandishe guru charana kamala Jahar prasade Krishna kripa pai Jara prasade anya gati nai Trisanda kirtira stava dhyane bhai Vandishe gurur charana kamala Gurudeva shakayati jatna kori Brahma muhurte pore ucha kori Vrindavana nath Shakshat Shri Hari Seva pai Sheva Susiddhi kale Vandishe gurur charana kamala Vandishe guru charana kamala Gurudeva jaya Gurudeva Gurudeva jaya Gurudeva jaya Gurudeva 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 jaya Gurudeva Krishna hoite chaturmukha hoy Krishna sevonmukha Brahma hoite narate ramati Narada hoite vyasa Madhva kohe vyasa dasa Purna pragya parmanabha gati Nrihari madhava vangshe Akshabhya paramahamse Shishya boli angikara kore Akshabhira shishya jaya Tirtana me parichaya Taradase jnana sindhu tore Taha hoite dayanidhi Taradasa vedyanidhi Rajendra hoilo taha hoite Tahara kinkara jaya dharma name parichaya parampara jana bhala mate jaya dharma dase khyati Shri Purushottama jati Tahoite brahmanya tirtha suri Abhyasa tirtha tar dasa lakshmi pati vyasa dasa Taha hoite Maravendra puri Maravendra puri bara shishya bara shri ishvara Nityananda shri adeta vibhu Ishvara puri ke danya korilen Shri Chaitanya Jagar Guru Gora Mahaprabhu Mahaprabhu Shri Chaitanya Radha Krishna he anya Rupanuga janera jivana Vishwambara Priyankara Shri Sarupa Dāmodara Shri Gosvāmī Rupa Sanātana Rupa Priya Mahāraja Jivara Gunatahan Tarpiya Kavi Krishna Dasa Krishna Dasa Priya Vara Nārāyaṇa Seva Para Jar Para Vishwanatha Yasha Vishwanatha Bhakta Sata Baladeva Jagannatha Tarpiya Shri Bhakti Vinoda Mahabhagavata Vara Shri Gora Kishora Vara Hari Bhajane Te Jara Mora Shiva Shavana Vipara Sada Seva Seva Para Tahara Daita Dasanama Prabhupada Antaranga Shri Sarupa Rupanuga Shri Keshava Bhakti Pragyana Gaudiya Vedanta Veta Maya Varata Mohanta Gauravani Prachara Chardhama Pracharila Gauravani Bhaktivedānta Swami Puraila Prabhupada Kama Keshava Priya Mahāraja Vamana Nārāyaṇa Gauravani Tade Prandhana Esava Harijan Gaurangera Nijajan Tadera Uchishte Mora Kama Guru Parampara Guru Parampara Parampara Guru Parampara Guru Parampara Guru Parampara Parampara Guru Parampara Vrindavana Vasi Jata Vaishnavera Gana Prathame Vandana Kori Sabara Charana Nila Chalavasi Jata Mahaprabhur Gana Bhumite Pariya Bandhan Sabhara Charana Navadipa Vasi Jata Mahaprabhur Bhakta Sabhara Charana Bandhan Hoya Anurakta Mahaprabhur Bhakta Mahaprabhur Bhakta Jata Gora Deshe Sthiti Sabhara Charana Bandhan Koriya Pranati Je Deshe Vaishe Gaurangera Gana Urdhva Bahu Kori Bandhan Sabhara Charana Hoya Chena Hoi Benu Prabhur Jata Dasa Sabhara Charana Bandhan Dante Kori Ghasha Brahmanda Tarite Shakti Dhare Jane Jane Evera Purane Guna Kai Jeva Shune Mahaprabhur Gana Sabha Patita Pavana তাই লোভে মই পাপী লইনু শরণ, বন্দনা করিতে মই কত শক্তি তরি, তাম বুদ্ধি দোষে মই দম্ভ মাত্র করি, তথাপি মুখের ভাগ্য মনের উল্লাস, তোষক স্বামী মোয়া ধামে করো নিজ দাস, সর্ববংশ সিদ্ধি হয় জম বন্ধ ছুটে, জগতে দুর্লভ হইয়া প্রেম ধন লুটে, মনের বাসনা পূর্ণ অচিরাতে হইয়া, দেবকী নন্দন দাস এলো বেকয় যায়, বৈষ্ণব ঠাকুর বৈষ্ণব ঠাকুর বৈষ্ণব ঠাকুর জয়, বৈষ্ণব ঠাকুর জয়, বৈষ্ণব ঠাকুর বৈষ্ণব ঠাকুর বৈষ্ণব ঠাকুর বৈষ্ণব ঠাকুর। শ্রী কৃষ্ণ চৈতন্য প্রভু নিত্যানন্দ, শ্রী অদ্বৈত গদাধর শিবসাদি ও গৌর ভক্তবৃন্দ। শ্রী কৃষ্ণ চৈতন্য প্রভু জীবে দয়া করি, সপার্ষদ শ্রী ধাম সহায়াবতারি, অত্যন্ত দুর্লভ প্রেম করিবারে দান, শিখায় শরণাগতি ভক্তের প্রাণ, তনয়াত্মা নিবেদন গোপ্তৃত্বে বরান, অবশ্য রক্ষিবে কৃষ্ণ বিশ্বাস পালন, ভক্তি অনুকূল মাত্র কায়ের স্বীকার, ভক্তি প্রতিকূল ভাব বর্জনাঙ্গীকার, শরঙ্গ শরণাগতি হইবে যাহার, তাহার প্রার্থনা শুনে শ্রী নন্দ কুমার, রূপ সনাতন পরে দন্তে তৃণ করি, ভক্তি বিনোর পরে দোহ পদ ধরি, কান্দিয়া কান্দিয়া বলে আমি তো ধাম, শিখায় শরণাগতে করো হে উত্তম, জয় সপার্ষদ জয় গৌর হরে, সপার্ষদ জয় গৌর হরে, জয় রূপ সনাতন জয় রূপ সনাতন, রূপ সনাতন জয় রূপ সনাতন। Could you let me know if the sound is okay, if it's peaking, like if it's, yeah, please just let me know. Oh, and Rup Manjari, who wrote the verse, the Dāmodara Pranam mantra, Radha Dāmodara Dhyan mantra, it's Angashamali Macha Tabya Rabito. That was written by Śrīla Rupa Gosvāmī. It's in Stavamala. It's just by itself. It's like an untitled prayer just by itself in Stavamala. Okay. Krishnot kirtana gana nartana paro, premamritam bhonidhi, dhira dhira jana priya priya karo, nirmatsaro pujito, Shri Chaitanya kripa bharo bhuvi bhuvo, bharavahantarako, vande rupa sanatana raghuyako, Shri Jiva Gopalako, Nana Shastra Vicharanayaka Nipuno, sadharma samsthapako lokanam hitakarino tribhuvane manya sharanyakaro Radha Krishna Padaravinda Bhajana Nandena Mataliko Vande Rupa Sanātana Raghuyago Shri Jiva Gopalako Shri Gauranga Gunarnuvarnana Vidho Shraddha Samriddhanvito O Papo Tapanekrintano Tanubhritam Govinda Ganamritai Anandam Buddhivardhanai Kanipuno Kaivalya Nistarako Vande Rupa Sanātana Raghuyago Shri Jiva Gopalako Tyaktva Turnama Shesha Mandalapati Shrenim Sada Tucchavat Bhutva Dina Ganesha Karunaya Gopena Kanta Shrito O Gopi Bhavar Samritabdi Lahari Kalola Magno Muhur Vande Rupa Sanātana Raghuyago Shri Jiva Gopalako Kujat Kokila Hangsa Sarasagana Kirne Mayura Kule Anana Ratna Nibadda Mola Vitapa Shri Yukta Vrindavane Radha Krishnam Aharnisham Prabhajato Jivartado Yomuda Vande Rupa Sanātana Raghuyago Shri Jiva Gopalako Sankhya Purvaka Nama Gana Nathibi Kalavasani Krito Anidrahara Vihara Kadi Vijato Chatyanta Dino Chayo Radha Krishna Guna Smrite Madhurima Nandena Samohito Vande Rupa Sanātana Raghuyago Shri Jiva Gopalako Radha Kunda Tate Kalingutanaya Tire Chavamshi Vate Prenman Maravashara Shesha Dashaya Kraso Pramada O Gayanto Chakada Harer Gunavaram Bhava Vibhuto Muda Vande Rupa Sanātana Raghuyago Shri Jiva Gopalako He Radhe Vraja Devike Chalalite He Nanda Suno Kuta Shri Govardhana Kalpa Pada Patale Kalindi Vanye Kuta Goshanta Viti Sarvato Vrajapure Kedar Mahavivalo O Vande Rupa Sanātana Raghuyago Shri Jiva Gopalako O Vande Rupa Sanātana Raghuyago Shri Jiva Gopalako Jai Rupa Sanātana Jaya Rupa Rupa Sanātana, Rupa Sanātana, Jaya Rupa Sanātana, Jaya Rupa Raghunatha Bhatta, Rupa Raghunatha Dasa, Rupa Raghunatha Bhatta, Rupa Raghunatha, Jaya Shri Jiva Gopal Bhatta, Shri Jiva Gopal, Shri Jiva Gopal Bhatta, Shri Jiva Gopal. Let me just check. Okay, all sounds good. Great. Awesome. Vrindavane viharato riha keli kunje, Mata dipa pravara kautuka vibramena, Sandarshaya sayuvayo vadana ravinda, Dang dang videhi mai devi kripam prasida, Adevi kaku bharagat kadayadya vacha, Yache nipatya bhuvi danda varur batarti, Asya prasadam abhudasya janasya kritva, Gandharvikene jagane gananam videhi, Shame Rama Ramana Sundarata Varishta, Sundarya Mohita Samasta Jaga Janasya, Shamasya Vama Puja Baddha Tanu Kadaha, Tvamendira Virala Rupa Bharam Bhajami, Tam Prachadena Mudira Chavina Pidaya, Manjira Mukta Charanang Chavidaya Devi, Kunje Vrajendra Tanayena Virajamane, Naktam Kada Pramuditam Abhisarayeshe, Kunje Prasuna Kula Kalpita Kelitalpe, Samvishtayor Madhura Narma Vilasa Bhajo, Lokatraya Bharanayosh Charanam Bhujani, Samvahayishyati Kadayuvayor Janoyam, Atvat Kundaro Dasi Vilasa Parishramena, Svedambu Chumbi Vadanang Puraha Shiyovam, Vrindavaneshwari Kadatarumula Bhajo, Sambhijayami Chamari Chaya Chamarena, Linam Nikunja Kuhare Bhavate Mukunde, Chitraiva Suchitavati Ruchirakshina, Bhugnam Bhruvam Narachayeti Vrisham Vrisham Tam, Agre Vrajendra Tanayasya Kadanuneshe, Vagyuda Keli Kutuke Vrajaraja Sunam, Jitva Madhamadika Darpa Vikasi Jalpam, Pula Birali Biranalpa Mudiryamana, Stotram Kadanubhavatem Avalokayeshe, Yakopi Shushtu Vrisha Panukumari Karya, Samprartanashtakamidam Pathate Prapana, Sapreyasa Sahasameta Drita Pramoda, Tatra Prasada Lahare Murari Kuroti, Jaya Radhe, Jaya Radhe, Jaya Radhe, Jaya Shri Radhe, Jaya Vrishabhanu Nandini Radhe Radhe, Vrishabhanu Nandini Radhe Radhe, Radha Mukunda Pada Sambhava Garma Bindu, Nirmanchanopakarane Krita Dehalaksham, Uttunga sohrita visheshavashat prakalbham Devim gunai sulalitam lalitam namami Araka sudha kirana mandala kanti dandi Avaktra shiyam chakita charu chamoru netram Radha prasadana vidhana kala prasidha Devim gunai sulalitam lalitam namami Alaso lasarbhujaga shatrupatatra chitra Patam shukha bharana kanchulikanchitangim Gorochana ruchi vigharhana gorimana Devim gunai sulalitam lalitam namami Adurte vrajendra tanaye tanushuštuvamyam Madakshina bhavakalankini lagavaya Arade giram shinohitamiti shikshayantim Devim gunai sulalitam lalitam namami Aradhamabhi prajapate kritamatmajena Kutamana kapi vilokya vilohitakshim Vagbhangi samachirena vilajayantem Devim gunai sulalitam lalitam namami Vatsalya-vrinda-vasatim pashupalaragya Sakhyanushikshanakalasu gurum sakinam Radha-balavaraja-jivita-nirvishesham Devim gunai sulalitam lalitam namami Yam kamapi vrajakule vrishabhanujaya Preksha sapaksha paravemanuruddhamanam Sadashtarishta ghatanena kritartayantem Devim gunai sulalitam lalitam namami Radha vrajendra sutta sangamarangacharyaam Varyam vinishchitavatim akhilotsavebhya Tam gokula priya sakhi nikuramba mukhya Devim gunai sulalitam lalitam namami Anandana muni lalita guna lalitani Padyani patati nirmala drishtirashto Prita vikarshati janang nija vrindamate Tankirtida patikulo jvala kalpavali Adevim gunai sulalitam lalitam namami Adevim gunai sulalitam lalitam namami Ajaya lalita devi jaya lalita devi Lalita devi jaya lalita devi jaya lalita devi jaya lalita devi lalita devi jaya lalita devi Raturanta kasya patane bipati harini Prekshayati papino pipapa sindhu tarini Niramadhuri virapya shesha chitta bandhini Mam punatu sarvadara vinda bandhu nandini Hari vari dharaya bhimanditoru khandava Pundarika manta yodha danda jali tandava Sanakama pamarogra papa samparandhini Mam punatu sarvadara vinda bandhu nandini Shikhara bimrishcha jantu durvipaka mardini Nanda nantaranga bhakti puravardhini अतीरसङ्गमाभिलाषि मङ्गलानुबन्धिनि मां पुनातु सर्वदारविन्दबन्धुनन्दिनि द्वीपचक्रवालजुष्टसप्तसिन्धुभेदिनि श्रीमुकुन्दनिर्मितोरुदिव्यकेलिवेदिनि कान्तिकान्दिले वीरेन्द्रनीलवृन्दनेन्दिनि मां पुनातु सर्वदारविन्दबन्धुनन्दिनि माथुरेण मण्डलेन चारुणाभिमण्डिता प्रेमनाथ वैष्णववर्धनाय पण्डिता ऊर्मिदोर्विलासपद्मनाभपारवन्दिनि मां पुनातु सर्वदारविन्दबन्धुनन्दिनि रम्यतीररम्भमानगोकदम्बभूषिता दिव्यगन्धभाकदम्बपुष्पराजिरुषिता नन्दसूनो भक्तसङ्घसङ्गमाभिनन्दिनि मां पुनातु सर्वदारविन्दबन्धुनन्दिनि फूलपक्षमालिकाक्षहंसलक्षपूजिता भक्तिविद्यादेवसिद्धकिन्नरालिपूजिता अतीरगन्धवाहगन्धजन्मबन्धरान्धिनि मां पुनातु सर्वदारविन्दबन्धुनन्दिनि चिर्विलासवारिपुरभूर्भुवस्वापिनि कीर्तितापि दुर्मुदोरुपापमार्मतापिनि बालवेन्द्रनन्दनाङ्गरागभङ्गगन्धिनि मां पुनातु सर्वदारविन्दबन्धुनन्दिनि तुष्टबुद्धिराष्टकेन निर्मलोर्मिचेष्टितां कामनेन भानुपुत्री सर्वदेववेष्टितं यस्तविति वर्धयस्व सर्वपापमोचने भक्तिपूरमस्य देवि पुण्डरीकलोचने मां पुनातु सर्वदारविन्दबन्धुनन्दिनि मां पुनातु सर्वदारविन्दबन्धुनन्दिनि जय मुने जय जय मुने जय मुने जय जय मुने जय विशाखा देवी जय विशाखा देवी विशाखा देवी जय विशाखा देवी निजपतिभुजदण्ड छत्रभावं प्रपद्य प्रतिहतमददृष्टो दण्डदेवेन्द्रगर्व अतुलप्रतुलशैल श्रेणिभूपां प्रियमे निजनिकटनिवासां देहि गोवर्धनतं प्रमदमदनलीला कन्दरे कन्दरे ते रचयति नवयोनो द्वन्द्वमस्मिन् अमन्दम् इति किल कलनार्तं लग्नकस्तद्वयोर्मेने निजनिकटनिवासं देहि गोवर्धनतम् अनुपममनिवेदि रत्नसिंहसनोर्विरुहजरदरसानो द्रोणिसाङ्गेषु रङ्ग सह बलसखिभिः सह खेलयन् स्वप्रियमेने निजनिकटनिवासं देहि गोवर्धनतं रसनिधि नवयोनो साक्षिणीं दानकेले द्युतिपरिमलविद्धां श्यामवेदीं प्रकाश्य रसिकवरकुलानां मोदमस्वलयामे निजनिकटनिवासं देहि गोवर्धनतं हरिदयितमपूर्वं राधिकाकुण्डमात्मा प्रियसखमिह कण्ठे नर्मन्नलिङ्गगुप्त नवयुवयुगखेलास्तत्र पश्यन् रहो मे निजनिकटनिवासं Dehi Govardhanatam Stala Jala Tala Shashpar Buru Harshaya Yacha Pratipadamanukalam Hanta Samvardayanga Trijagati Nijagotram Sarthakyam Khyapayane Nijanikatani Vasam Dehi Govardhanatam Surapati Krita Dirga Drohata Gushtaraksham Tavanavagriha Rupa Syantare Kurvataiva Agabakari Punoche Dattamana Trutame Nijanikatani Vasam Dehi Govardhanatam Girindripaharidasa Shreni Varyeti Nama Mritamidamuditangshi Radhika Vaktra Chandrar Prajanavati Lakatve Klipta Vedai Sputame Nijanikatani Vasam Dehi Govardhanatam Nija Jana Yutarādha Krishna Maitri Rasakta Vrajanara Pashupakshi Vrata Sokaikadata Aganita Karunatvan Mamuri Krita Tantam Nijanikatani Vasam Dehi Govardhanatam Nirupari Karunena Shri Sachinandanena Tvaika Patishatoti Tvad Priyenarpitosmi Iti Khalu Mama Yogya Yogya Tam Tam Agrina Nijanikatani Vasam Dehi Govardhanatam Rasadata Shakamasya Śrīla Govardhanasya Kshitidhara Kula Bhartur Ya Prayatna Dadite Sasapari Sukadesme Vasamasya Dashaksha Chubara Yugala Seva Ratnamapnoti Turnam Nijanikatani Vasam Dehi Govardhanatam Nijanikatani Vasam Dehi Govardhanatam Jaya Giriraja Jaya Govardhana Giriraja Jaya Govardhana Jaya Giriraja Govardhana Giriraja Jaya Govardhana Jaya Govardhana Jaya Vrindavana Govardhana Jaya Vrindavana Jaya Radha Kunda Jaya Shama Kunda Radha Kunda Jaya Shama Kunda Krishna Deva Bhavantam Vande Krishna Deva Bhavantam Vande Manamanasa Madhukaramarpaya Nijapada Pankajamaka Rande Krishna Deva Bhavantam Vande Krishna Deva Bhavantam Vande Yadapi Samadhishu Vidirapi Pashati Natavana-kagramarichin Idami chami nishamya tavachyuta tarapi kripadhuta vichem Krishna Deva Bhavantam Vande Krishna Deva Bhavantam Vande Bhakti rudanchati yadyapi madhava natvai mamatila matri Parameshwarata tarapitavadhika dhurghata ghatanavi Dhatre Krishna Deva Bhavantam Vande Krishna Deva Bhavantam Vande Ayamavilolatayadya Sanātana Kalitarбhutarasabharam Nivasatu nityameham-mṛtanendini vindana madhurimasaram Krishna Deva Bhavantam Vande Krishna Deva Bhaktivedānta Vande Mana Manasa Madhukara Marpaya Nijapara Pankaja Makarande Mana Manasa Madhukara Marpaya Nijapara Pankaja Makarande Krishna Deva Bhaktivedānta Vande Krishna Deva Bhaktivedānta Vande Jaya Radhe Jaya Jaya Madhava Daite Gokula Taruni Mandala Mahite Jaya Radhe Jaya Jaya Madhava Daite Dāmodara Rati Varadana Veshe Hari Nishkuta Vrindavipineshe Avrishabhanudadi Navashashileke Lalita Sakhi Guna Ramita Vishake Jaya Radhe Jaya Jaya Amadhava Daite Jaya Radhe Jaya Jaya Madhava Daite Karuna Gurumai Karuna Bharite Sanātana Varnita Charite Radhe Karuna Gurumai Karuna Bharite Sanātana Varnita Charite Ashirupa Sanātana Varnita Charite Jaya Radhe Jaya Jaya Madhava Daite Gokula Taruni Mandala Mahite Jaya Radhe Jaya Jaya Madhava Daite Sucharu Vaktramandalam Sukarna Ratna Kundalam Sucharchitanga Chandana Namami Nandanandanam Sudirga netra pankajam Shikanda murdhajam Ananga koti mohanam Namami Nandanandanam Sunarasikagmoktikam Swachandadanta panktikam Navam Budanga Chikanam Namami Nandanandanam Karena Venuranjitam Kati Karendra Ganjitam Dukulapita Shobhanam Namami Nandanandanam Tribanga Deha Sundaram Nakhaduti Sudakaram Amulya Ratna Bhushanam Namami Nandanandanam Sugandhayanga Saurabam Uro Viraji Kostubam Spurgat Shri Vatsalancanam Namami Nandanandanam Vrindavana Sunagaram Vilasanugavasasam Surendra Garva Mochanam Namami Nandanandanam Prajangana Sunayakam Sadasuka Pradayakam Jaganmana Pralobhanam Namami Nandanandanam Śrīnandanandanaṣṭakam Patedya Shadayanvita Taret Bhavaktim Dustaram Labhetarangri Yugmakam Namami Nandanandanam namami nandanandanam, namami nandanandanam, namami nandanandanam, munendra vrindavandite trilokashokaharini, prasanna vaktra pankaje nikunja bhuvilasini, brajendra bhanu nandini, brajendra sunu sangate, kada karishasi hamam kripa kataksha bhajanam, ashoka vriksha vallari vitana mandapastite, pravala vala pallava prabharunangri komale, varabhaya spudarpare prabhuta sampadalaye, kada karishasi hamam kripa kataksha bhajanam, ananga mangala prasanga bhangura bhruvam, savibhramam sasambhramam triganta bana patanai, nirantaram vashikrita pratiti nandanandane, kada karishasi hamam kripa kataksha bhajanam, tarit suvarna champaka pradipta gora vigrahe, mukha prabha parasta koti sharadendu mandale, vichitra chitra sanchara chakora savalochane, kada karishasi hamam kripa kataksha bhajanam, madon madati yovane pramodamana mandite, priyanuraga ranjite kala vilasa pandite, ananya dhanya kunja raja kamakeli kovide, kada karishasi hamam kripa kataksha bhajanam, ashesha hava bhavadhira hirahara bhushite, prabhuta shata kumbha kumbha kumbhi kumbha sustani, prashasta mandahasa churna purna sokya sagare, kada karishasi hamam kripa kataksha bhajanam, mrinala valla vallari taranga ranga dolate, latagra lasya lolani lalochana valokane, lalalulan milan manogya mugdha mohanashite, kada karishasi hamam kripa kataksha bhajanam, suvarna malikanchita tri-rekhāṅka-kaṇṭhage, trisutra mangali guna triratna dipti diditi, salola nila kuntala prasuna gucha gumfite, kada karishasi hamam kripa kataksha bhajanam, nitamba bimbalambamana pushpamekhala gune, prashasta ratna kinkini kalapa madhyamanjule, karindra shunda dandika varoha sova goruke, kada karishasi hamam kripa kataksha bhajanam, aneka mantra naramanju nupurara vaskalat, samaja raja hansa vangsha nikvanati gorave, vilola hema vallari vidambi charu chankrame, kada karishasi hamam kripa kataksha bhajanam, ananta koti vishnu loka namra parmajarchite, himadri japulo maja virincha javara prade, apara siddhi riddhi dekta satpadanguli nakhe, kada karisha sihamam kripa kataksha bhajanam, makeshwari kriyeshwari sareshwari Bhuvneshwari Sureshwari Trivera Bharateshwari Pramana Shashaneshwari Rameshwari Kshameshwari Pramora Kananeshwari Vrajeshwari Vrajadhipe Shiradhike Namostute Iti Mamarbhutam Stavam Nishamya Bhanunandini Karotu Santatam Janam Kripa Kataksha Bhajanam Bhavetadaiva Sanchita Trirupa Karma Nashanam Bhavetada Vrajendra Sunu Mandala Praveshanam Kada Karishasi Hamam Kripa Kataksha Bhajanam Namamishwaram Sachirananda Rupam Alasat Kundalam Gokule Prajamana Yashoda Biyo Lokadladhava Manam Paramrishtamadyan Tata Druta Gopya O Namamishwaram Sachirananda Rupam Lasat Kundalam Gokule Brajamana rudantaṁ muhur netra-yugmaṁ mṛjantaṁ karāmbhoja-yugmena sātaṅka-netram muhuḥ svāsa-kampa-tri-rekhāṅka-kaṇṭha sthita-graiva-dāmodaraṁ Bhakti-baddham Anamamishwaram Sachirananda Rupam Lasat Kundalam Gokule Prajamana Iti Dig-darśinī-ṭīkā labhir Ananda kunde svagosha-nimajjantam akyapayantam tadiyeshitargeshu bhakterjitatam puna prematastam shatavritti varam deva moksham namokshavadin va nachanyam vrineham varisharabhiha idam teva purnata gopala balam sada me manasavi rastam kiman O Namamishwaram Sachirananda Rupam Lasat Kundalam Gokule Brajamana Idam te mukham bojam avyakta nilai Vritam kuntalai snigdharaktaischa gopya Mohushchum vitam bimba rakta dharan me manasya virastam Alam lakshalama Namamishwaram Sachirananda Rupam Lasakundalam Gokule Brajamana Namadevadāmodarānanta Vishnu Prasiddha Prabhu Tukajala-dimagna Kripa-drishti vrishati dīna-bhatana Kripa-drishti vrishati dīna-bhatana Grihanesha mamagyam edakshitesha Namamishwaram Sachidanandarupam Lasakundalam Gokule Prajaman Kuberatmajo Pada Murtavayadvad Tayamachita Bhakti Bhajo Kritocha Tata Prema Bhaktim Swakame Prayacha Namokshe Graho Mesti Dāmodara Namamishwaram Sachidanandarupam Lasakundalam Gokule Prajaman Namaste Studamne Spuradipti Dhamne Tadyadarayata Vishwasadhamne Namoradhikaya Tadya Priyaya Oh Namoradhikaya Tadya Priyaya Oh Namoradhikaya Tadya Priyaya Namonantali Lai Devaya Namoradhikaya Tadya Priyaya Namoradhikaya Tadya Priyaya Oh Namoradhikaya Tadya Priyaya Oh Namoradhikaya Tadya Priyaya Namonantali Lai Devaya Namonantali Lai Devaya Radha Dāmodara Radha Dāmodara Dāmodara Radha Dāmodara Jai Radha Dāmodara Radha Dāmodara Radhe Jai Radha Dāmodara Radha Dāmodara Radhe Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Ram 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 Hare Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Ram 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Ram 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Ram 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare Nitai Gaur Hari Bol Hari Bol Hari Bol Nitai Gaur Hari Bol Nitai Gaur Hari Bol Hari Bol Hari Bol Hari Bol Shinitai Gaur Premanande Hari Hari Bol Jai Shri Sachinandan Gaur Hari Ki Jai Shri Radha Vinod Vihari Ju Ki Jai Shri Radha Damodar Ju Ki Jai Shri Govinda Gopinath Madan Mohan Ju Ki Jai Jai Shri Gurudev Ki Jai Jai Shri Param Gurudev Ki Jai Shri Prabhupada Ki Jai Shri Rupano Gauriya Guru Varga Ki Jai Swaparshad Shri Gaur Nityananda Prabhu Ki Jai Shri Radha Krishna Gopa Gopigan Ki Jai Shri Giriraj Mahārāja Ki Jai Shri Tulsi Maharani Vrinda Devi Ki Jai Shri Bhakti Devi Ki Jai Shri Purnamasi Yogamaya Ki Jai Shri Gopeshwar Mahadev Ki Jai Shri Kartik Vrat Ki Jai Vrat Palan Kari Bhakta Vrinda Ki Jai Urjeshwari Shiva Shubhanu Nandini Shrimati Radha Thakurani Ki Jai Kartik Vrat Palan Kari Bhakta Vrinda Ki Jai Shri Harinam Śrī Dāmodarāṣṭakam Ki Jai Shri Satyavrat Muni Ki Jai Shri Krishna Dvaipayan Veda Vyasdev Ki Jai Shri Sanātana Gosvāmīpāda Ki Jai Shri Gurudev Ki Jai Shri Harinam Sankirtan Ki Jai Ananta Koti Vaishnava Vrinda Ki Jai Shri Nitai Gaur Premanande Hari Hari Bol Shri Vrajmandal Parikrama Ki Jai. Where's everybody going today? I think where is it? First day is sorry, my mind just went blank. Kaliya Harad, Kaliya Daha, and Madan Mohan. And yeah, first day. So Jai Shri Brajmandal Parikrama ki Jai, Shri Harinam Sankirtan ki Jai, Ananta Koti Vaishnava Vrinda ki Jai, Samagata Gaura Bhakta Vrinda ki Jai, Shinitai Gaura Premanande, Hari Hari Bol. Jai. Alright, so now we will read from Dāmodarāṣṭakam, verse 2. Let me just share my screen. 1 second. Oh wait, am I using the right mic? Okay, it is using the right mic. Cool. 1 second. Oh, and Pradyumna Prabhu, yeah, when we're singing the songs, we should be meditating on all the words. And so if you're meditating on the words, then some kind of, remembrance, some kind of something should be going on in the mind, hopefully. Yes, it's very beautiful, that one. It's 3 hours long. It's really good. And it has subtitles if anybody wants to watch. All right, I'm going to start now. So let's see, where did we leave off? Verse 2. Rudantaṁ muhur netra-yugmaṁ mṛjantaṁ karāmbhoja-yugmena sātaṅka-netram muhur svāsa-kampa-tri-rekhāṅka-kaṇṭha sthita-graiva-dāmodaraṁ bhakti-baddham. So rudantaṁ means weeping, muhur, incessantly, netra-yugmaṁ, 2 eyes, mṛjantaṁ, and rubbing both simultaneously. Karāmbhoja-yugmena. Kara means hands, ambhoja means lotus, yugmena means 2, both. So see, netra-yugmaṁ, his 2 eyes, and karā-yugmena, his 2 hands, karāmbhoja-yugmena, with his 2 lotus hands. Sātaṅka-netram, with fear-filled eyes. Muhuḥ means again and again. Svāsa, heavy sobbing. Kampa, trembling. Tri-rekhāṅka, with 3 curved lines that resembled the ringed groves encircling the neck of a conch shell. Kaṇṭha sthita, upon his neck. Graiva, necklace. Dāmodaraṁ, Shri Krishna, whose waist, whose udar, is bound by a rope, by Dhamma. Bhakti-baddham, Bhakti-baddham, bound by loving devotion. Translation. Seeing the stick in his mother's hand and fearful of being beaten, he is weeping incessantly and rubbing his eyes again and again with his 2 lotus-like hands. His eyes are extremely restless and filled with fear. He takes heavy breaths again and again that cause the pearls and other ornaments around his neck, which is marked by 3 gracefully curving lines, to tremble. O Dāmodara, you have been bound by your mother's vātsalya-bhakti. I offer my obeisances unto that Dāmodara. Dig-darśinī-ṭīkā by Śrīla Sanātana Gosvāmī. We're going to read the Bhav Anubad of his Dig-darśinī-ṭīkā. The excellence of Krishna's extraordinary Lila is depicted in this important verse from Śrīmad Bhagavatam 10:9-11. Kritagasam tam prarudantamakshini kashantamanjan mashini swapanina udvikshamanam bhaya-vivalekshanam haste grihitva bhishayantavagurat. Mother Yashoda watched as her naughty child cried bitterly and rubbed his eyes with both his hands. The black ointment from around his eyes mixed with his tears and spread everywhere. Seeing her son with eyes full of fear at the sight of the stick she was brandishing, Yashoda took him by the hand and began to gently reproach him in order to instill fear in him. In the stanza beginning with rudantaṁ, Sri Satyavrata Muni fully captured the meaning of this Bhagavatam verse. In following with the second half of the previous stanza, he continues to establish his worshipful Lord's supremacy through descriptions of his unique pastimes. Appreciating the same pastime that is described in the above verse from Srimad Bhagavatam, he spoke the present stanza thus. When he saw his mother holding a stick, he became apprehensive, fearing that she would surely beat him. Now he is hoping that by showing her how afraid he is, he can avoid being punished. So rudantaṁ, he cries bitterly, and karāmbhoja-yugmena, netra-yugmaṁ mṛjantaṁ. He rubs his eyes again and again with both his lotus-like hands. Remember, kara means hands, ambhoja means lotus, so karāmbhoja means lotus, yugmena means both, and netra-yugmaṁ, yugmaṁ and yugmena, it's the same word. So it means both, or it means two. So with his two lotus hands, mṛjantaṁ, he rubs his yugmaṁ, his two eyes, netram. Karāmbhoja-yugmena, netra-yugmaṁ mṛjantaṁ. That he just keeps rubbing his eyes with both his hands is in keeping with the natural behavior of a child. This is the special characteristic of his Balya Lila, and it is one explanation of karāmbhoja-yugmena yugmaṁ mṛjantaṁ. But this phrase also indicates two alternative meanings. Wait, so what's the primary meaning? Is that he rubs his eyes again and again with both his lotus-like hands to show his mother how afraid he is, right? He wants to show her, look, I'm really afraid. So he's trying to make her feel bad. That's the first one. So he can avoid being punished. But now here's the two alternative meanings. The first of these is that there are actual tears that instantly came to his eyes due to his fear. In order to make these tears fall from his eyes, he continuously rubs them with both his hands. The second alternative meaning is that continuous streams of tears are already flowing from his eyes, so he rubs his eyes with both his hands to wipe away the tears. The meaning of sātaṅka-netram is that if even his eyes are expressing that he is afraid of being punished, his mind must be overwhelmed with fear. Otherwise, it may be taken to mean he is casting his glance in all directions because he is greatly agitated by fear. His attempt to avoid being beaten by his mother is another of his unique confidential pastimes. And moreover, muhuḥ swasena, because of his continuous crying and constant heavy sobs, kaṇṭha sthita-graiva-dāmodaraṁ. Kaṇṭha means neck, sthita means situated, and graivam means, I guess means pearl necklace, I'm guessing. So the pearl necklace and other ornaments around his neck, which is marked with tri-rekhāṅka. Three rekha lines, anka. I guess anka means marked. I think anka means marked. But three graceful lines like the ringed grooves on a conch. They are also trembling. Kampat. So what is that? Sthita-graiva-dāmodaraṁ. No, what is it? Muhuḥ svāsa-kampa. Kampa means trembling. Sthita-graiva. No. Whatever. muhuḥ svāsa-kampa. Anyways, you got it. Okay. Śrī Dāmodara, whose belly becomes bound by ropes, appeared thus. By this description, Śrī Satyavrat Muni has captured the meaning of another verse from Śrīmad Bhagavatam 10:9-14. Taṁ matvatmajam avyaktam martyalingam adhokshajam gopiko lukhale damna babandha prakritam yata. Just as an ordinary mother in this world may bind her mischievous son, so Mother Yashoda, simply considering Sri Krishna to be her son, tied him to the grinding mortar with a rope as if he were an ordinary child. The above verse mentions that rope was knotted both at his belly and at the grinding mortar. And there's a footnote here. What does it say? Mother Yashoda first tied one end of the rope to a heavy grinding mortar and then began to tie the other end of the rope around her child's belly in order to keep him securely bound. Okay. I think that was clear already. Close. There. Thus the sage has revealed Sri Krishna's unique supremacy by describing his bhakta vashyata vishesh, his special quality by which he allows his devotees to control him. Śrī Satyavrat Muni says, Bhakti-baddham. The meaning is Bhaktivedānta. Sri Krishna is only bound by bhakti and nothing else. In other words, it was not the strength of all the ropes that was able to bind him. Rather, he submitted to being bound, on one hand, because of the power of Sri Yashoda's bhakti for him in the form of motherly affection, and on the other hand, because of his own special quality of willingly being controlled by his bhaktas, like his mother, in the form of his bhakti for her. Okay, so it's because of Yashoda's bhakti for him, and it's because of his bhakti for her. That's why Krishna allowed him to become bound to her. That is why, even when Mother Yashoda tied all the ropes she had gathered together, she still failed to bind him. There always remained an inexplicable gap of 2 fingers. This is described in Śrīmad Bhagavatam 10:9-15-17. Tadama badyamanasya sarvakasya kritagasa dvangulo nam abhutena sandadhe nyacha gopika. When Mother Yashoda tried to bind her mischievous child, the rope was 2 fingers too short, so she added another rope to it. Yadasitar api nyunam tena nyad api sandade tarapi dvangulam nyunam yadyad adatta bandhanam. However, that also was 2 fingers short. In this way, each and every time she tied on another rope, it was always 2 fingers too short. Evam sageha damani yashoda sandadatyapi. Although she had tied together all the ropes in her home, Mother Yashoda could not bind Krishna. Seeing this, the gopis started giggling. Utterly perplexed, she also began to laugh. The other reason that his belly became bound with rope, Damodaratva, is that Bhakti-baddham. He is completely enchanted exclusively by the bhakti of his devotees. This meaning actually leads to the previous one, that he becomes bound because of his bhakta vashyata, his willingness to become controlled by his devotees. In regard to this, Śrīmad Bhagavatam 10:9-18-21 further states, Swamatu swinagatraya visrasta kabarasraja drishtva parishramam Krishna kripaya sit svabandhane. She had become exhausted by tying so many ropes together, and her body had become covered with perspiration. The flowers woven into her hair had fallen from her hair. The flowers woven into her hair had fallen from her loosened braid, and had scattered here and there. Seeing his mother's fatigue and feeling compassionate, little Krishna then allowed his mother to bind him. Evam sandarshita hyanga harina bhakta vashyata Svavaneshapi Krishnena yasyedam seshwaram vashe. O Parikshit Maharaj, this entire universe, along with the powerful demigods who control it, is completely under the control of the supremely independent personality of Godhead, Shri Hari. Yet, he has allowed himself to be bound in order to show that he is willingly controlled by his devotees. Nemam virincho na bhavo na shir apyanga sangshaya prasadam le bhire gopi yattat prapa vimuktidat. The Supreme Lord Shri Krishna, who bestows salvation upon all, never showed Lord Brahma, Maheshwar, Shiva, or even his eternal consort Lakshmi Devi, who is half of his body, the kindness he showed this gopi, Yashodha. Nayam sukapa bhagavan dehinam gopika suta jnaninam chatma bhutanam yatta bhakti matamiha. Bhagavan Shri Krishna, the son of a gopi, Gopika Sutta, is not at all easy to attain for the Ashtanga yogis who identify themselves with the body and who perform severe austerities. Nor is he easy to attain for self-realized jnanis who absorb in all-pervading non-dual knowledge. But these loving associates who are absorbed in serving him, simply considering him to be the darling son of a gopi, have easily attained him. In other words, although the ascetics and impersonalists undergo great trouble, instead of attaining the Supreme Lord Shri Krishna, they merely attain an incomplete or partial expansion of him. These verses have conveyed the aforementioned reason for being bound. The reason is that this is a footnote, the reason is that Shri Krishna is bound due to his quality of bhakta vashyata. Later in Srimad Bhagavatam, Shri Krishna declares, Devarshi me priyatamo yadimo danatatmajo tattatha sadhayishyami yargitam tan mahatmana. That's from 10:10:25. Devarshi Narad is my dear devotee. Therefore, even though these two brothers, the sons of the most wealthy demigod Kuvera, had no devotion for me, still, I must fulfill Shri Narad's words by appearing directly before them and granting them my devotional service. The deep meaning of this statement spoken by Shri Krishna is that he enacted the pastime of delivering the two sons of Kuvera in the form of twin Arjuna trees because he was pleased by Shri Narad's devotion to him. Indeed, he enacts all his pastimes because he is pleased with the bhakti of his devotees. This is yet another important meaning of bhakti-baddham. He is bound by bhakti. Thus ends the English rendition of the Dig-darśinī-ṭīkā on the second verse by Śrīla Sanātana Gosvāmīpāda. Dig-darśinī-vṛtti. Let me just check, make sure everything's okay. All right, and just letting you know, I'm going to probably mention this every day, just in case anybody comes who wasn't there before. But if the video ever stops, it means that my power went out, and I'll quickly move over to my phone. So now we are going to read the Dig-darśinī-vṛtti by my Śrīla Gurudev. On this day, Shri Krishna, the personality who causes the three worlds to tremble merely by the movement of his eyebrows, has become overwhelmed by fear of his mother. Seeing the tiny stick in her hand, he is trembling and stammers, "Mother, look, do not hit me. I did not break the pot of yogurt." Mother Yashoda is slightly full-figured. As she was running, her braid came undone, and the flowers woven in her hair began falling out. It is as if the flowers were saying, "Mother, you are not alone. We are also with you." Those devotees who make their hearts spotless by endlessly drinking the nectar of devotion to Shri Krishna, imbued with extreme attachment and laced with renunciation of the material world, attain a state of meditating on Shri Krishna deep within their immaculate hearts, which are fully saturated by loving service. The Supreme Personality of Godhead in the form of Nārayaṇa sometimes appears in the meditations of Lord Brahma, the creator of the universe, and the four Kumaras, the original sages. Still, even in their deepest meditation, they cannot capture him in the form of Vrajendra Nandan Sri Krishna. Yet, Mother Yashoda actually bound him, the complete embodiment of all nectarian humors of transcendental love. Unimaginably powerful warriors, despite their greatest valor, pose no threat to Krishna. But Mother Yashoda not only captured him, she brandished a small stick in her hand and threatened him, "Shall I beat you now?" As Kanhaiya rubbed his tear-filled eyes and tried to hide behind his mother, he cried out, "Mother, do not hit me!" He did not look directly at her. He looked fearfully at the stick. He only looked fearfully at the stick in her hand. "You monkey friend," she exclaimed, "Chor, thief!" To this, Sri Krishna replied, "Mother, there is no chor in my dynasty. There is only a chor in your dynasty." And the footnote here is Chor Gopa is the name of one of Sri Yashoda's ancestors. Chor literally means thief. "Oh, really?" she retorted. "If you did not steal the butter, then who was feeding the monkeys?" Kanhaiya replied, "He who made the monkeys was feeding them." "Is that so?" she said. "Tell me frankly, who broke this pot?" "Look, Mother, when you ran to save the milk, your large ankle bells hit the pot and it broke." "Then how did you get butter all over your face?" she asked. "Mother, the monkeys were eating the butter, so I was trying to scare them away. As they were running, they smeared butter all over my mouth." Hearing this exchange, all the gopis began to laugh. "I am not about to set you free so easily," Mother Yashoda said. "I am going to tie you up." Mother Yashoda's move was grave. If I don't chastise him, she thought, he will become quite a troublemaker. With this in mind, she decided to bind him. Although Sri Krishna started to cry, she did not let him go. She thought to herself, I will keep him tied up for a while, and when I have finished churning the yogurt, I will untie him and feed him butter and breast milk to calm him down." Mother Yashoda considered, Krishna is Kala, a cunning and mischievous thief, and his accomplice is Ulukala, this grinding mortar. Both deserve to be punished. I will tie them together in such a way that Krishna cannot untie himself from the mortar. Isn't it great how, I just love how everything is conscious in Vrindavan. So the flowers are, and Yashoda's hair are talking to her and giving her support. And she's also chastising the grinding mortar for helping Krishna to get the, she's punishing the grinding mortar also for helping Krishna to get the butter. Thinking thus, she proceeded to bind him. Tadama baddhamanasya svarbhakasya kritagasa dhyangulo nam mabhutena sandadhe nyachagopika. Sorry, I messed up on that. Srimad Bhagavatam 10:9-15. When Mother Yashoda tried to bind her mischievous child, the rope was 2 fingers too short. So she tied it to another rope. She had removed the silk ribbon from her braid in order to bind Krishna with it. Other than the gold chain around his waist, Krishna was quite naked. I love how Mercury would say that. He's quite naked. Although his tiny waist measured no more than 12 fingers, the ribbon could not be made to bind him. It was 2 fingers too short. Mother Yashoda asked her friend for another rope, but that was also too short. Time and again she gathered and added more rope, but it was always too short, and only 2 fingers too short. Not more, not less. There is an esoteric meaning in this. One finger represents the sadhak's endeavors, and the other finger represents the Lord's mercy. Sri Bhagavan becomes controlled by his devotees. Sri Bhagavan becomes controlled by his devotee only when both these elements are present together. The Ramanuja Sampradaya is divided in 2 according to whether they emphasize the Vedic scriptures or the Tamil scriptures. the Tamil scriptures. The former are known as the Varakalai and the latter as Tenkalai. They have distinct opinions regarding the means of ultimate attainment. The view of the Varakalai Ramanujas is based on grace arriving from a cause. Their stance is compared to Markotanyaya, the analogy of the baby monkey clinging to his mother for protection. When the mother monkey moves about with her baby, she makes no effort to hold him. Instead, the baby clings to her as she leaps from one tree, when she leaps from tree to tree, and if he falls, his mother will never accept him again. Conversely, the view of the Tenkalai Ramanujas is based on causeless grace. Their stance is compared to Marjaranyaya, the analogy of the cat carrying the kitten in her mouth. The mother cat picks her kitten up with her teeth and carries him about. The kitten does not make any effort and goes wherever she takes him. Thus, the followers of the Varakalai school strive for the grace of Bhagavan by their own efforts, and conversely, the followers of the Tenkalai school rely solely on faith in the causeless grace of Bhagavan, considering their own endeavors ineffective. The Gaudiya Vaishnava school asserts that both views are necessary. The following analogy is given to illustrate this stance. A person who has fallen into a well will cry, "Please help me, pull me out." Then from above, someone may lower a rope into the well and say, "I am lowering down a rope, catch hold of it and I will pull you out." However, if the person in the well does not catch hold of the rope, he will not be freed. From his end, he must hold on to the rope, and from above, he must be pulled out. In this example, the person in the well cries for help, and later firmly catches hold of the rope. These endeavors are the means of his deliverance. In other words, they are his sadhan. From above, the person who is trying to pull him out is bestowing causeless mercy. For someone helplessly fallen in the well of material existence, Śrī Bhagavan's causeless mercy descends, just like this rope. And by performing sadhan, one takes hold of that rope and achieves service to his lotus feet. Mother Yashoda did not give up in her attempt to bind Krishna. She kept trying. All the gopis began to clap their hands and say, "Oh, mother, the Creator has not written on this boy's forehead that he will be bound. So how can you tie him up?" Mother Yashoda felt ashamed. "This is so embarrassing," she thought. "I have not been able to bind the child that came from my own womb." Then taking shelter of Bhagavan Sri Narayan, she silently began to pray. "O Narayan, please help me. If I cannot bind this boy today, it will be so shameful for me. Protect my honor." Her face had become reddish like the rising sun, and drops of perspiration had begun to roll down her face like pearls. Srimad Bhagavatam 10.9.18 describes this as follows. Svamatu svinagatraya visrasta kabarasraja drishtva parishramam Krishna kripaya sit svabandhane. Shri Krishna saw that his mother's body had become drenched with perspiration. The garlands woven into her braid had fallen out, and she had become utterly exhausted. Seeing his mother's fatigue, little Krishna compassionately allowed himself to be bound. Sadhaks should perform sadhan bhajan with the same unwavering determination and hard endeavor. Then Shri Krishna's heart will melt, and he will be compelled to bestow his sublime devotional service upon them. Indeed, when Krishna saw his mother's firm resolve, his heart melted, and his topmost potency, his mercy, the totality of all his powers combined, then manifested as his bhakta vatsalyata, his affection for his devotees. At that very moment, his Aishwarya Shakti, his potency of supreme majesty, disappeared, and he allowed himself to be bound. Mother Yashoda made an intense endeavor with unflinching resolve. Following her example, sadhaks should try to melt Shri Krishna's heart, and by practicing devotional service that is imbued with the characteristics like sincere loving emotions, bhav, great enthusiasm and anxiousness, utkanta,
a deep sense of closeness and relationship, sambandha, a feeling of possessiveness, mamata, an intense affection for him, priti, they should compel him to engage them in loving service to him. Regarding the previously mentioned verse from Srimad Bhagavatam beginning with Swa-matu, an important point must be considered. Srila Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur explains in his commentary on this verse. Krishna's waist measures only 12 fingers, and the length of the rope continually increased. Why then could his mother still not bind him? Krishna was thinking, My important daily activities of stealing butter and playing with my friends will be stopped, so my mother should not tie me up. Immediately, his Aishwarya Shakti, which makes the impossible possible, manifested herself within him and proceeded to serve him. Consequently, although the size of his waist remains the same, and although the rope was made so long, his mother could not bind him. I love that. His important daily activities. The Vraj Gopis who were witnessing this pastime along with Mother Yashoda could not understand its mystery. Why was the rope 2 fingers too short? Shri Krishna could not be bound by ordinary rope because all arrangements for his pastimes are made exclusively by his own intrinsic potency, Yoga Maya. Furthermore, there is no outside or inside of Krishna, nor is there any beginning or end of him. He exists eternally in his Sarup, both before the creation of the phenomenal universes and after their total destruction. In the interim, he pervades all the universes, residing within each of their atoms, yet all the while he remains Akila Rasamrita Murti, the original form of condensed transcendent nectar in its totality. In fact, Raso Vaisa, he is nectar. Thus, Shri Krishna, being forever beyond the purview of mundane sense perception, is thoroughly inconceivable. Yet Mother Yashoda simply regards him as her son. Thinking of him in that way, she behaves with him in such a natural and seemingly ordinary way that her relationship with him may even appear to be like a relationship from this world. But because of that simple, loving relationship, she was actually able to bind Shri Krishna. Shri Krishna can never be bound by someone who has not abandoned all separate interests for selfish enjoyment, which are in opposition with the tendency to please him. He will only become bound by someone who cultivates uttama bhakti, which is the inherent function of one's perfected constitutional identity, and which is uninhibited by fruitive acts, mystic yoga, and dry knowledge. Therefore, Shri Bhagavan's power of compassion and mercy, the topmost among all his potencies, only becomes manifest by the performance of such uttama bhakti. In its presence is Aishwarya Shakti, the power by which he displays his supreme majesty becomes powerless. When Shri Krishna manifests his mercy potency, he is controlled of his own accord. In their previous lives, Devaki and Vasudeva performed extremely severe penances, but even they could not bind Shri Krishna. And there's a footnote here. So even Devaki and Vasudeva could not bind Krishna. Editor's footnote. Although Shri Krishna awarded them their desired benediction by becoming their son, he performed all of his sweet childhood pastimes in Vraj, away from their vision. When he returned to them in his later pastimes, his identity as the Supreme Lord was revealed. When Shri Krishna manifests his mercy potency, so in their previous lives, Devaki and Vasudeva, what then can be said of others who tried to bind him? He may willingly come under the control of a sadhak when he sees them eagerly perform loving service to him with great persistence, but he cannot be attracted by austerities alone. He is only attracted by sincere love. Before the advent of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, bhakti was evident within the world, but not bhakti ras. Sri Rupa Goswami fulfilled the inner desire of Sriman Mahaprabhu. Within the sacred texts he compiled, especially Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu and Sri Ujjvala Nilamani, he perfectly delineated the meaning of Bhakti Ras, describing all of its divisions and subdivisions in full detail. Śrīman Mahaprabhu has propagated bhakti ras through his most confidential associates, Śrī Dāmodara, Śrī Rai Ramananda, Śrī Rupa Gosvāmī, Śrī Sanātana Gosvāmī, Śrī Raghunatha Das Gosvāmī, Śrīla Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur, Śrīla Bhaktivedānta Thakur, Śrīla Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Thakur, my own Śrīla Gurudev, Śrīla Bhakti Pragyan Keshav Goswami Mahārāja, and others. Mother Yashoda wound the rope around Krishna's belly, tied him to the grinding mortar, and then went to churn yogurt, her mind remaining on her son all the while. Just then, Dham, Śrīdham, Sudham, Madhumangal, and Krishna's other sakhas arrived. Mother Rohini also returned to Nanda Bhavan from the house of Upananda along with her son Sri Baladev Prabhu, who then entered the group of sakhas. When he saw that his little brother was tied up and that he was crying, he became furious. Tears mixed with black cosmetic ointment were streaming from Krishna's eyes. On one side, where the ointment had totally washed away, it looked like the clear river Ganga. And on the other side, where his tears were dark from mixing with the ointment, it looked like the blackish Yamuna. Thus the two rivers were cascading onto his chest. Enraged, Baladev Prabhu asked Kanaya and the sakhas, "Who bound him?" Baladev Prabhu thought, "Whoever has bound my Kanaya, I will punish this very day." Then Madhumangal whispered into Baladev's ear, "It was Mother Yashoda who bound Krishna." As soon as he heard Mother Yashoda's name, he became silent. After a few moments, he tried to open the knot. However, he was unable to untie Mother Yashoda's strong knot. This is because the love of devotees in Vatsalya ras, parental love, is superior to the love of the devotees in Sakhya ras, friendship. Incidentally, had Baladev Prabhu had been situated in his form as a Nangamanjari, wherein he is devoted to Shri Krishna in the highest ras, madhur ras, conjugal love, he could have untied the knot. But although all the sakhas kept working together to untie Krishna, they were not successful. Shri Krishna gradually stopped crying. Even he was unable to set himself free. "Come on," the sakhas told him. We will tip over the grinding mortar and drag it out of the courtyard and play." At that moment, he remembered the incident that occurred long ago between the two sons of Kuvera and his dear devotee Narad, and he thought, "Devarshi me priyatamo yadimo dhanadatmajo tattata sadhiyashyami yargitam tam mahatmana." Srimad Bhagavatam 10:10-25. Devarshi Narad is my most dear devotee. Therefore, even though these two brothers, the sons of the most wealthy demigod Kuvera, had no devotion for me, still, I must fulfill Sri Narad's words by appearing directly before them and granting them devotional service to me. Kuvera was the dear friend of Devarshi Narad, and his two sons were Nala Kuvar and Manigriva. One day, while they were bathing in the Mandakini, the celestial Ganga, with heavenly damsels, their intoxication from being wealthy, beautifully figured, and youthful and of noble birth became further inflamed by drinking wine. At that time, Devarshi Narad passed by. When the ladies saw that he had come, they hurried out of the water, dressed themselves, and offered him obeisances. But Nala Kuvara and Manigriva, blinded by arrogance, did not offer obeisances. In fact, they stood there naked and mused, "Where has this person come from?" Ignoring the great sage, they shamelessly proceeded to call for the heavenly damsels to return. When Sri Narad beheld the degraded behavior of Nala Kuvara and Manigriva, he was overwhelmed with compassion for them. Outwardly, he feigned anger and shouted a curse. "Your behavior fits that of trees. So be it. Become trees." Upon hearing the curse uttered by Devarshi Narad, they were filled with fear. Falling at his feet and weeping, they begged for pardon. How can we be delivered?" they asked. Sri Narad replied, "Both of you will become twin Arjuna trees near the house of Nanda Maharaj in Gokul. At the end of Dwapara Yuga, Swayam Bhagavan Shri Krishna will deliver you in the course of enacting his childhood pastimes. When Shri Krishna remembered his devotee's curse, he was overwhelmed with compassion for the two sons of Kuvera. Just to deliver them, he dragged the heavy grinding mortar toward the extremely large Arjuna trees with all his friends. Editor's footnote. Ancient Arjuna trees grow extremely large. According to Sri Narad's curse, Nalakuvara and Manigriva remained in the form of Arjuna trees for 100 celestial years, or about 15 million Earth years. Wow, 15 million Earth years. So they dragged the grinding mortar between the two trees with all his friends. The trees were fused at their base, but somehow Shri Krishna passed between them. The grinding mortar, however, became lodged between the trees. As soon as Shri Krishna tugged at the grinding mortar with some force, the two trees were completely uprooted. At once, they began falling over and finally struck the ground, producing a deafening crash. Then, from within the ancient trees, two divine personalities emerged. They circumambulated Shri Krishna and submitted prayers in glorification of him. After they begged to be forgiven for their offense, Shri Krishna explained, "It is the unfailing result of seeing Sri Narad that even such rogues as the two of you are able to see me face to face, and the sum total of all the sins you have committed in your countless births have fled far away from you. May you attain bhakti for me." By Shri Krishna's causeless mercy, they resided in Goloka Vrindavan from that point onward. They became the famous reciters Madhukanta and Snigdhakanta. Thus, as Shri Krishna's special associates, they eternally narrate his unlimited pastimes in the assemblies of Shri Nanda Baba or the Gopis. That which cannot be obtained even after accumulating pious credit, sukriti, for millions of lifetimes, can be achieved very quickly by the causeless mercy of Shri Guru, Vaishnavas, and Shri Hari. The devotees who are expert in relishing the loving moods of the Vraja Gopis are the treasure house of Lobhamaya Bhakti, devotion to Shri Krishna that is full of intense longing. Among them, some exemplify one's own desired mood and are affectionate towards oneself, Sajatya Snigdha. If one gets their association, then he should realize that they are the most dear friends of his soul. With his life and soul, he should serve them and endeavor to purchase their mood. But how can such moods be attained? When a person hankers for the same relationship, the same sambandha that these great Rasik devotees have with their Swamini, Sri Radha, and with her companions, and when he hankers to have the same deep possessiveness, the same mamata for her, and the same intense inclination to serve her, the seva vasana, then he can attain these moods. Only then can one truly serve such Rasik personalities, and it is then that one's life is successful. There is no other way. It's really important. Nanda Baba came running after he heard the deafening crash made when the massive Arjuna trees fell. He saw Kanhaiya still tied up, standing between the fallen trees. Nanda Baba was shaken to see Krishna standing so close to the fallen trees and thought, "Today, Sri Narayan has given us so much protection. What would have happened if Kanhaiya had been underneath these trees when they fell?" Mother Yashoda also came running. When she saw the horrible scene, she entered into shock. Aghast, she thought, "Alas, what has happened?" Nanda Baba asked the children, "How did this happen?" In their broken language, the children explained, "Baba, as soon as Kanhaiya pulled the grinding mortar against the two trees, they fell over and two very beautiful people came out. They looked like demigods. They folded their hands and offered prayers to Kanhaiya. Then they circumambulated him and went north." But Nanda Baba was not convinced. He took Krishna on his lap. Krishna had been keeping silent till now, but as soon as he sat on his father's lap, he burst into tears and began to wail. When Nanda Baba and the cowherd boys saw Krishna crying, tears also started streaming from their own eyes. Nanda Baba pacified his darling son and untied the knot. The knot that bound Krishna was factually made of vatsalya ras, not rope. Consequently, only his associates in vatsalya ras, or madhur ras, conjugal love, had the power to untie such a knot. Krishna's friends in sakya ras and his servants in dasya ras, or those situated in a passive or neutral relationship with him, in shanta ras, they all could not have untied the knot tied by Mother Yashoda. Even within vatsalya ras, there is a gradation. The love of Mother Yashoda, who actually bound Krishna, is superior to the love of Nanda Baba, who released him. When Mother Yashoda saw what had happened to her Kanaya, she could not move. She simply stood there like a statue. She could not even cry. Nanda Baba made Kanaya a little peaceful and then gave him a sweet laddu from his cloth bag. "Kanaya," he asked, "tell me, who tied you up?" "Mother," Kanaya replied. Becoming silent, Nanda Baba then resolved to punish Mother Yashoda with the greatest punishment a loved one can give. For the entire remainder of the day, Nanda Baba did not speak a single word to her. In a grave mood, he took Krishna and Balaram in his arms and went to bathe in Brahmanda Ghat. After everyone had bathed, he returned with them to the Goshala, the grand shelter for the cows. Meanwhile, Mother Yashoda had become as dry and lifeless as a piece of dry wood. In the Goshala, Nanda Baba filled Krishna's and Balaram's bellies by giving them rock candy and squirting milk into their mouths directly from the cow's udders. When they came home, Mother Rohini served them the food that she had prepared, and Nanda Baba silently fed the children. After they had finished, he took some himself. Then they returned to the Goshala. In the evening, Upananda's wife came to Nanda Baba along with Mother Rohini and the other older ladies of Raj. Mother Rohini told Balaram, "Go now and bring Krishna." That day, however, Krishna had given Balaram such a push that he fell quite far backward. Finally, Upananda's wife and Mother Rohini spoke to Kanaya. "Look, Kanaya," they said, "your mother is crying so much. Go to her." "No, I will not go," he answered. "Then come to me," Rohini said. But Kanaya answered strongly, "No, I won't go near you. When mother was tying me up, I called to you so loudly, but you did not come. I won't even go near you." "With whom will you eat?" asked Mother Rohini. "With father," he answered. "With whom will you play?" she asked. "With Daubhaya, my big brother Balaram." "With whom will you sleep?" "With father." Rohini said, "Until now, you have always slept next to your mother, but today you will sleep by your father? Your mother is crying for you." Then Nanda Baba said, "Should I beat your mother?" Upon hearing these words, Kanaya stopped his father's raised hand in answer. Kanaya stopped his father's raised hand in answer. Then Rohini said, "And if your mother suddenly dies, then?" As soon as Krishna heard this, he burst into loud sobs and ran into Mother Rohini's lap. She brought him to Mother Yashoda, and when she placed him on Yashoda's lap, Yashoda began to weep loudly. Shri Krishna also cried. Nanda Baba's heart melted, and he began to cry. Rohini and all the other residents of Raj who were gathered there, Rohini and all the other residents of Raj who were also gathered there, also began to cry. Weeping filled the entire atmosphere. Finally, the respected elders of Raj pacified everyone. That night, when it was time for dinner, Nanda Baba told Kanaya, "Go and bring your mother to me." Shri Krishna immediately went and caught hold of his mother's veil, and although she hesitated to go, Krishna brought her to Nanda Baba. She served dinner to everyone, and they all took their meal with great joy. Thereafter, Mother Yashoda took Shri Krishna up in her arms and went to her bedroom. Thus ends the Dig-darśinī-vṛtti on the second verse. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna,
Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare. Jaya Sachinandan, Gaura Hare, Sachinandan, Jaya Gaura Hare, Jaya Radha Damodara, Radhe, Jaya Radha Vinod Bihari, Radhe, Jaya Giri Raja Govardhana, Giri Raja, Jaya Govardhana, Vrindavana, Govardhana, Jaya Vrindavana, Jaya Tulsi Maharani, Jaya Vrinda Devi, Tulsi Maharani, Jaya Vrinda Devi, Jaya Tulsi Maharani, Jaya Vrinda Devi, Tulsi Maharani, Jaya Vrinda Devi, Jaya Navadvipa, Jaya Mayapura, Navadvipa, Jaya Mayapura, Jaya Navadvipa, Mayapura, Navadvipa, Jaya Mayapura, Jaya Gurudeva, Jaya Gurudeva, Jaya Gurudeva, Jaya Prabhupada, Jaya Prabhupada, Jaya Prabhupada, Hari Bol, Nitai Gaur, Hari Bol, Nitai Gaur, Nitai Gaur, Hari Bol, oh Gaur, Hari Bol, Nitai Gaur, Hari Bol, Shinitai Gaur, Premanande, Hari Bol. Jai Shri Guru Grantham Ki Hari, Shri Radha Vinod Bihari Ju Ki Jai, Shri Govinda Gopinath Maran Mohan Ju Ki Jai, Nitil Pravishtam Vishnupad, Ashtatarashata Shishmad Śrīla Bhaktivedānta, Nārāyaṇa Gosvāmī Mahārāja Śrīla Gurudeva Ki Jai, Nitil Pravishtam Vishnupad, Ashtatarashata Shishmad Śrīla Bhaktivedānta, Vāman Gosvāmī Mahārāja Ki Jai, Nitil Pravishtam Vishnupad, Ashtatarashata Shishmad Śrīla Bhaktivedānta, Swami Mahārāja Śrīla Prabhupada Ki Jai, Nitil Pravishtam Vishnupad, Ashtatarashata Shishmad Śrīla Bhakti Pragyan, Keshav Gosvāmī Mahārāja Ki Jai, Nitil Pravishtam Vishnupad, Ashtatarashata Shishmad Śrīla Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Gosvāmī Prabhupada Ki Jai, Nitil Pravishta Mahabhagavat Śrīla Gaukisharas Babaji Mahārāja Ki Jai, Nitil Pravishta Śrīla Satchidananda Bhakti Vinod Thakur Ki Jai, Nitil Pravishta Vaishnav Sarvabhauma Śrīla Jagannath Das Babaji Mahārāja Ki Jai, Shri Rupanu Gauriya Guru Varga Ki Jai, Shri Rupa Sanātana Bhatta Raghunath, Shri Jeev Gopal Bhatta Das Raghunath, Shri Gosvāmī Prabhu Ki Jai, Shri Sarup Damodara, Rai Ramanandari, Shri Gaur Parshad, Vrinda Ki Jai, Namachay Śrīla Haridas Thakur Ki Jai, Prem Se Kaho Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda, Shri Advaita Gadadhar, Shri Vasari Gaur Bhakta Vrinda Ki Jai, Shri Kshetra Mandala, Gaura Mandala, Vraja Mandala, Mathura Vrindavan Dham Ki Jai, Abhina Vrindavan Shri Navadip Dham Ki Jai, Shri Vrajmandal Dham ki jai, Shri Vrajmandal Parikrama ki jai, Shri Giriraj Maharaj ki jai, Shri Tulsi Maharani Vrinda Devi ki jai, Shri Bhakti Devi ki jai, Shri Purnamasi Yoga Maya ki jai, Shri Gopeshwar Mahadev ki jai, Shri Harinam Sankirtan ki jai, Shri Radha Damodar Ju ki jai, Shri Radha Krishna Gopa Gopi Gan ki jai, Shri Damodar Vrat ki jai, Kartik Vrat ki jai, Urja Vrat ki jai, Urjeshwari Shivishabhanu Nandini, Shrimati Radha Thakurani ki jai, Shri Urja Vrat Palan Kari Bhakta Vrinda ki jai, Shri Harinam Sankirtan ki jai, Śrī Dāmodarāṣṭakam ki jai, Shri Satyavrat Muni ki jai, Shri Sanātana Gosvāmīpāda ki jai, Shri Harinam Śrīla Gurudev ki jai, Shri Harinam Sankirtan ki jai, Ananta Koti Vaishnava Vrinda ki jai, Samagata Gaura Bhakta Vrinda ki jai, Shri Nitai Gaur Premanande Hari Hari Bo. Vrindai Tulsi Devai Priyai Keshavashaja Krishna Bhakti Padadevi Sattvatai Namo Namaha Vancha Kalpatarubhyashcha Kripa Sindhubhyaevacha Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha. Dandavat pranams. Thank you for joining me today. Hari Bol. Alright, so I'll see you all tomorrow for verse 3 of Dāmodarāṣṭakam. Isn't this book so sweet? It's just so, it has so much tattva siddhanta, you know, but then it also has so much lila, and it also has so much just very practical advice how we can make advancement right now, like from whatever level we're at. It's like so beautifully combines these three things. It's one of my favorite books, really. It's so good. And it really reminds me of my Gurudev. It's like so my Gurudev. It's like so his kind of Hari Katha, you know, what he would speak every year during Vrajmandal Parikrama. So yeah, it also brings so much strong remembrance of my Gurudev. So anyhow, okay. Thank you. See you all tomorrow. Jai Shri Radhe.